Hi, I'm Kel Daniels. I'm an author, I'm a professor, and I'm co host of the Moon Underwater podcast. And today I'm going to I'm going to introduce my new book recommendation series, Stories That Matter. And to get into what that means or what my criteria is, I'm going to start off with a book which I can recommend, I suppose, but isn't really part of my recommendation. It's called The Golden Theme by a guy named Brian McDonald. Now, this is a book that is a how to write stories book. Brian McDonald is a screenwriter, but he has some really interesting ideas about story, about why stories exist. And I'm going to start it off with this is one of his chapters here in his book. And this chapter is called Why Humans Tell Stories. And it starts off with an epigram, if that's what those little quotes before other pieces of writing. And this one's by one of my very favorite authors and one that I'm going to recommend later in this series. But here's the quote. There have been great societies that did not use the wheel, but there have been no societies that did not tell stories. Ursula K. Le Guin said that. So that's a pretty interesting idea. And another one, there's a really one of those long civilization books called Sapiens. Um, Yuval something Herrera. Probably got his name wrong. But one of his key ideas is that everything that makes humans humans, everything that we call civilization, everything that makes us so powerful on this country have to do with stories. Money is a story, nationhood is a story, laws are a story, rights are a story, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this power is immense and it's also incredibly human. And uh, why is it that we tell stories? So why does every single society always tell stories? And McDonald and others claim that it is because stories transmit necessary survival information. These are evolutionary uh, um, elements of our ability at our success as a species. Um, and not just success, but domination. It all comes down to stories. And the reason why some stories last and some stories disappear is that the ones that last are the ones that have the most necessary survival information. One example, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I've never met a person in my life. I've asked many, many classes that I've taught over the decades of teaching um, about this story. I've never met a single student from all over the world who didn't know this story. What is it? Why does this story survive when millions of stories are out there in different folklore that I've never heard of? Well, it's because it's got survival information. The story is very clear, and the consequences are also clear. If you're constantly lying, people will stop believing you, and eventually they'll stop believing you, even when you tell the truth. And the consequence can literally be death. And so this is my guiding principle on stories that matter. I'm going to look for novels, short stories that have survival information and not stuff for survival information for 2,000 years ago. I'm looking for stories that directly have information that we should be thinking about right now or we should be reminded of right now. And I might as well give a little preview of what's coming up next. Next time, I'm going to start us off by a novel called Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. Wonderful novel. And tune in next time, and I'll tell you about it. Take care.